All right. So welcome to Support to Startup. Today we're going to,
Episode 3.
yes, episode 3. Today we're going to talk about some common ideas that come up when people talk about becoming an entrepreneur. Like this is, these are things that have come up a lot of times in conversations I've had with people, and I think probably you as well, Martin. Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the first one I want to talk about is this idea of saving up money, right, to to start a business, right? Because it's a when I talk to people about, like, do they have an idea, and is this something that they want to do? I'll often hear people will talk about, well, I'm trying to save up money, right, because I need to I need to have like either 6 months in the bank or a year in the bank, right, before I can I can like start thinking about being an entrepreneur. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Martin, and kind of like what you think of it, of like, should people be saving up money?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic because, like, as the best ones, like, it doesn't have like a sort of definitive answer, and it gives us a chance to sort of ramble on about it for an hour.
Right.
But I think sort of like my sort of short answer would be that I think it's like, it's, of course it's good if you have savings, but
Right.
I think it's by no means like a sort of like you can still be an entrepreneur if you don't have 6 months or a year's worth of money in the bank.
Right. Right. Yeah. I, so
What do you think?
I think it's always good to have money in the bank, but I think it's not going to make or break you, right? It may shape how you go about it, right? But I think if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, the key thing to figure out isn't how to save more. The key thing to figure out is how to make money.
Yeah.
Right? if 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 you don't figure that out, then it kind of almost like doesn't matter how much you have saved, right? And I think saving money kind of can give you more time to figure out how to make money.
And I feel that, like, if you have like a sort of endless buffer of cash,
Mm-hmm.
then it's kind of uh, like always and forever having the training wheels on,
Right.
and like you will not sort of come into contact with like the sort of reality and uncertainty of like being an entrepreneur until you are in a situation where like, okay,
Right.
there's a limited amount of cash in the bank, like I need to make this work somehow.
Right.
So I think it's kind of like isolating yourself like from the sort of true essence of being an entrepreneur, which is like by definition like uncertainty.
Yes. So I
So
100% agree. So it's a bit like kind of being able to stay with your parents and not have to pay rent or not have to pay for any expenses,
yeah,
right? Versus having to figure it out because you have to.
yeah, but I think like this is like it gets it gets ugly on like both extremes. Like if you have way too much money, then you will just be like basically going through your sort of so-called entrepreneurial journey, like being potentially delusional, like thinking about like what it's really like. And if you actually sort of have endless amounts of money, then you don't need to adapt to anything. Like you don't need to sort of adapt to the sort of
Right.
surrounding environment, the market, like nothing. However, like then again, I see like the other extreme as well. If you sort of kind of going into it, you know that you're going to be in trouble right away,
Mm-hmm.
then that's also not good. Like you cannot even sort of you have to be sort of prepared for what's coming, and what is coming is uncertainty.
Right. 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 So I wouldn't suggest that people ignore saving or having any savings, or having any funds to work with. I think, and I think you're right. Kind of like at the extremes, it kind of gets silly, or or
Yeah.
risky or very dangerous on either side. I think it's the other thing I would suggest too is, or the other thing that I would suggest that people consider is figure out how to reduce your cost of living rather than trying to save more, because it's generally easier and more effective long term to reduce your essentially your operational or living expenses
Yeah.
it is to try to kind of like build a bigger pile of money
Yeah.
over time and quicker. And
Yeah.
I
No,
think
that,
you mentioned this in an earlier show, right, where you were like kind of trimming down some of your expenses, right?
yeah.
Like that probably had more of an impact for you than um, if you had given yourself another 6 months of savings, or giving yourself another year, right, to build up savings.
But I think like the weird thing is that like I did that, but like first of all, my expenses weren't super high to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and second of all, I think the sort of real impact actually was mental
Mm-hmm.
rather than like actual
Like,
monthly cash savings. It was more like okay, I'm telling myself that like this is now a different type of situation that I'm going to be in, and I need to sort of change how I sort of approach like daily expenses. And when I had like a sort of steady income, then it was okay to sort of go out and sort of go to a nice restaurant like rather often. Now I kind of what I feel that has happened is that like I have changed my defaults.
mm-hmm.
So I don't sort of I will sort of now default to not spending versus where I sometimes I was like, hey, I have a paycheck coming next month, no problem, I can sort of still allow this.
Right.
So I think like that's I would say like the sort of thing that has helped me like in like sort of changing the sort of regular expenses.
Right. So how has that mental shift like helped you on this journey to being an entrepreneur? Like where do you see it? Um,
Well,
like how's that changed? Like has that affected the way that you look at the way you run your business, right? The way that you're living your life, and just like I guess where is that, like how far apart you are, kind of from what were some of the things that, because for example you had mentioned you're going to nice restaurants probably more often, right? What are some of the other things that you used to do that you're like not doing as much of, or not doing at all anymore?
yeah. Well, I mean, like the sort of short answer to that is like for me, I feel that like having a sort of toned down lifestyle, if you will, the like this serves as a sort of constant reminder that like the company is not mature yet,
Right.
we're not making millions yet, and until that happens, like you shouldn't sort of like spend money on things that you used to. So for me, I feel that like the sort of it's like a daily reminder of like this is a sort of different kind of reality that you're in, and I sort of fear that if I would have continued like living the exact same lifestyle, I would just forget about the fact that like I'm not sort of getting a sort of like big paycheck anymore, and like this is right now like we have a sort of a finite amount of resources that we need to sort of use to leverage to like start making more money.
Right.
But in terms of like things that I have actually sort of that I have changed, like first thing, where I live, it's actually cheaper to own a home than to rent, and so like I did that. So I bought a home instead of renting, which is like better in the long run. nothing fancy, just like change the economics.
Yeah, so that's a big decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like I live in Estonia, so not the same as buying a house in Silicon Valley. Sold my car, so I now drive a really old car. But luckily, I like old cars a lot, so that helps.
Nice.
Basically, like everything that I felt that wasn't sort of serving the purpose of keeping me sort of physically and mentally in shape, like it still involves like a degree of like social life, because I think I would go crazy without it. So I really try to sort of optimize things in a way that sort of,
Yeah.
help me achieve this goal of like making the company successful in the shortest amount of time.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's, yeah, I think it's interesting because I found like in my own journey, by reducing costs and just trying to figure out how to do more with less, like that has really helped make support driven possible. And kind of, it still kind of very much shapes like how we do things and how we think of things, right? Like there's always a question of like, is this sustainable, right? Like, and can we afford to keep doing this, right? And I think having that mindset, right? I think especially on the business side, can scale essentially, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're on a personal side, you're kind of like dealing with your personal expenses, but when you're talking about like business expenses, right?
That's very true.
You know, like kind of how smart you are with your money can scale.
And that's a very good point, because like especially if we're talking about the community, then chances are that the people that are considering of making this move, they are probably at companies right now that are sort of funded or like making lots of money.
Yep.
So if they aren't able to sort of make this sort of shift in their mindset, they might sort of subconsciously sort of start thinking like, oh, I'm still with, I don't know.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Google or Zendesk or some other sort of massive company, and
With
like
tons of benefits, right? Tons of perks, right?
And like buying sort of like the most expensive of everything,
Right.
because that's how you've always seen it happen. But like if you sort of change this like in your personal life, then I'm sure like at least I feel that it has carried over into my sort of business life as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a fantastic point, because I've worked at large companies and you know, and we both know a lot of people at large companies and small companies, right? And I think there's many benefits to working at a large company that you know, that it's fantastic, right? But there's also a question of like, is it necessary? Right?
You know what
starting on your own.
Do you know what I feel is that like the one of the sort of really of noticeable changes over like working at a large company to like now running my own business.
Yeah.
So when I was sort of picking out like gadgets, and you sort of like get like a bunch of search results, and then you have different columns that you can sort them by on various websites, like on online shops or whatnot. So you can sort by like whatever latest and like highest rated,
right?
And then you can sort by price.
Right.
What I used to sort those things by was like start from highest price first and highest rated first.
Right.
Now it's like start from cheapest.
Yeah. Like best rated, but also
yeah,
costs.
that would be like the ideal option, but unfortunately sometimes those aren't the highest rated.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's true, right? Because like a lot of those things can be subconscious, right? Where you're just like, oh, every 2 years I get a new laptop. Well, do you really need that when you're running your own business?
I just ordered a new battery for my 2014 MacBook Air. I didn't like. First of all, I wasn't, prior to this situation, I wasn't even aware that you could change the battery on an Air. but apparently you can. So here comes another 10 years of using this computer.
Very cool, right? And so yeah, so I think that so I mean, that's the thing that if I would, I think that's probably the top advice I would give to people is like, it's great to save money, but also think about like, how you could be smarter with your money or do less with, or kind of get more with your money, right? Question that, right?
Yeah, but one other thought I would add to that is, like, again, I think there's still like some sort of a critical level below which, like, if you don't have like any wiggle room whatsoever,
right,
and you're also sort of setting yourself up for like a lot of pain,
right,
because like if you have like no wiggle room whatsoever when it comes to your savings or buffer, then that will lead to a situation where you will just start to sort of like constantly worry about that, and that will sort of paralyze you and will keep you from running your business and life in a normal fashion. So like there was I was just reading something the other day about like the like two generals like fighting a certain war, and on one side the general had like not like endless, but had like way more men,
right,
and the other side had like a very very restricted amount of soldiers. And because like there were no sort of backup soldiers to sort of fill in for whatever maneuver he tried, he couldn't like do anything that was like nearly as daring. And like if you aren't able to sort of take any risk,
right.
then that's also like you're not sort of getting the sort of entrepreneurial experience in that case.
I agree, right? So like you don't want to put yourself, you want to back yourself into a corner, put yourself into a desperate situation.
Yeah.
Because at that point, then it's really becoming more like gambling, right? Then if you have no room to move, if you have no room to operate in, I think, so like, there are, so savings is one way to deal with that, right? I think the thing that kind of, I guess, bothers me a little bit is this idea of like you have to save first and then you can like go put on the entrepreneurial hat.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, saving and then starting, right? Whereas I feel that, that is, that's kind of like almost avoiding risk, right? Or avoiding
Yes.
facing reality. If this is what you want to do, right, then just, I would say, just figure out how to start, how to dive in.
I have another analogy.
Okay.
And this is like one that I shouldn't be. This is the one that my co-founder should be using because he's into sailing,
Okay.
and the sort of going out to sea like analogy is like the idea of like only starting when you have like when you are like VC. Okay, I mean we are VC backed, like we don't have just like all that much like for the company, like we have sort of enough, but like going out to sea and like sort of only even considering it when you have like tens of millions for the company, or going out to sea and sort of only considering when you have like a year's cash buffer for yourself personally.
Right.
That I think is like the equivalent of like only saying like, okay, I'm gonna take an epic journey across the ocean, but only on a cruise ship.
Right.
Like that's the only condition. Like I just need to have like my cruise ship.
Right.
Versus like what I think is like the sort of true sort of entrepreneurial experience is like you have enough to survive, but not necessarily to be like completely isolated. So it's more about like going out. So like I think like the sort of healthy way is to go out on a small boat where you like you pull all the strings and the sails, and like you sort of have enough to survive, but it's not like you are completely isolated from the elements and the risk and so on.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I think that's a great point. I I will say with support driven, I did didn't think about savings at all in terms of like whether to do it or not. It was so my criteria for support driven was, can I make enough money kind of from it, right, to afford doing it as as a startup, right? And I think so that worked for me because I figured out how to make the money first, right? So and it wasn't just making the money; it was a combination of making some money and then also reducing living costs, right? So it was kind of on both sides that made it possible.
Mm-hmm.
And and so that's kind of like how it worked out for me. But like, but there it could have easily been like, okay, it's making some money, but like maybe not enough, right? So I'd still have to have a job and still do support driven, and like it could have worked out other ways where it could have taken more time, right? But I think at the end of the day, right, it's kind of figuring out like how do you get on that journey, right? Because there is not one right way. Maybe for some people, like it could be like the cruise ship is what works best for them, right?
Yeah.
Other people, like they just need a fishing pole and a boat or something, and they can kind of figure out how to like live off the land, if you will.
Yeah.
Other people, like they have some supplies, right? They're mapping out like ports and stuff that they can like come in and resupply.
But I think like the like the root cause of why people feel like they need a cruise ship is because that's what they're used to.
Right.
Because
right, because they're used to living with those amenities, right?
Yeah, because like that's what you get when you work at a big company, basically. So like it is difficult to like the sort of every like increasing living standard, like it creeps up on you, and sort of the notion of like going back on that. Well, I mean, I can't say that it was like super comfortable for me to sort of cut costs and like give up certain things.
Right.
But the other thing that I'm sure, like if you sort of went through it, then you probably experienced as well, is that this sort of unexpected feeling of relief or freedom when you sort of give up certain things, and then you realize like, hey, I feel fine. This is great. I can survive without like those luxuries. Like so the sort of idea that like of course you understand in theory, like there are like the vast majority of people on the planet probably sort of are worse off than you, like in terms of living standards and like access to all sorts of amenities. But like you sort of like your brain refuses to sort of believe that. Then you convince yourself that like the standard of living that you are at currently is the absolute minimum that you can sort of deal with. I think that's what most people feel subconsciously.
Yes, it's normal, right? Like you take it for granted. But I think we could do like another show on that topic, right? Of the difference between kind of what it's like, or what it was like, working for a company, and now what it's like kind of working for ourselves, and some of the, things that we may have given up, some of the things that we may have gained, right?
Yeah.
And to kind of share some of that reality, because I think unless you've been through it, it's hard to know. Like, how would you know? Like,
that's a good point. Yeah, like I think that would definitely make another full episode.
All right, cool. So let's end this episode here, and then I'll make to do a future episode on that one.
All right, cool.